Welcome to Lost Without Japan, a travel podcast about the life-changing experiences of exploring Japan and those moments we would be lost without. For your listening pleasure, allow me to introduce your very own Kanko Guido, Michael.
Welcome to a special Lost Without Moments bonus interview episode of the Lost Without Japan podcast. Our bi-weekly podcast is focused on getting you to Japan for your first visit or to make the next adventure to Japan even better than your last. Today's special interview episode with Gareth from Road Bike Rental Japan will cover an amazing service that will do just that, make your next trip unforgettable. This is your Kanko Guido for TKIC Studio Productions, coming to you with hopes and dreams of a return for travel to himself and others in summer 2022. I'd like to thank you all for giving me a bit of your time today, and I truly hope this podcast finds you in a good place or on the path to a better one, no matter how it may seem at this moment. My belief is that we could all use a beacon like this one in our lives to help guide us during these times, and my hope is that Japan, along with this show, will become that for you. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a returning Lost Without listener, thank you again for your time and returning. For today's show, let me introduce a special guest from the website roadbikerentaljapan.com and supporting YouTube channel Cycling in Japan, Gareth. I must say, I am truly thankful for being introduced to you by Jeff from Rediscover Tours and Rediscover Japan, and for you just really setting aside time from your busy schedule to join me for today's interview.
Hi there, Michael, and big thanks to Jeff as well. So, good morning from Osaka.
So jealous right now, Gareth, let me tell you. Having traveled to Japan like multiple times, I think it'd be easy to fall into a trap. Like where you only plan activities based upon things that were interest of you in your regular life. But the more I travel with others and now interviewing people like you, Gareth, with interests that vary from mine, I'm finding out, you know what? I've been missing out on some really exciting opportunities that I might not have potentially known about otherwise. And I truly feel fortunate today to have you, Gareth, join us and share what Road Bike Rental Japan has to offer listeners of Lost Without Japan, for their next trip to Japan. So welcome, Gareth. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. As I said, big thanks to Jeff. And here I am in Osaka. We're waiting for tourism to come back sometime very soon. But at the moment, it's just it's a pleasant spring day. Golden Week is just around the corner, so we've got a little bit of a busy weekend planned, but here we are providing a road bike rental service in Japan.
Excellent. And really, before we get going too far in today's episode, where can listeners go to take advantage of your services and to answer any additional questions they might have when they look to when they're booking their next trips?
Sure. Our website is roadbikerentaljapan.com. Nice and easy to remember. There's an FAQ on there, so that's a good place to look at the very common questions that we get asked about, like what's included in a rental, how much, etc. But there's also a blog. I say a blog, it's a resources page that has lots of information about places to go, ways to get around Japan, and it's just a lot of information there. I'm gradually trying to put that into the YouTube channel as well. We're in a world where everyone seems to like visual, so a lot of the blog content, even I'm getting quite lazy about reading blogs and love watching videos if there's that option, so that's why I'm trying to do that too. If, for example, there are any questions not covered in the FAQ, or there's no answer, that you can't find the answer on the website, it's the email address is info@roadbikerentaljapan.com, so feel free to send us an email.
Excellent. And let me tell you, Gareth was super quick with his responses and just communicating with me and setting some time aside. And I can just tell I'm like, he loves what he does. I told him that I would actually looked a couple of the videos earlier today when I was at school on my lunch break. And you've made me begin to fall down like this rabbit hole of things that I tell you, I'm like, I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of on my next trip. So just thank you so much for that. And for this next part here, Gareth, really, I just want to give you an opportunity to kind of share some things about yourself before we start, going too much into, your business and what you have to offer.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Gareth. I've been in Japan now 17 years. Originally from the UK. Yeah, as well as being a business owner in Japan, I'm also a house husband. So I spend a lot of time with my young kids. They're 4 and 7 years old. Um, so it's kind of quite a busy time. Global pandemic, or dealing with a global pandemic, dealing with tourism. It's just been a little bit of a crazy 2 years. I originally came to Japan as a kind of, I guess, a backpacker who started teaching, and then yeah, from teaching became a manager of a school, and I just kind of loved kind of the management side of things. And I think the idea of starting a business came at some point there, and once I fell in love with cycling, it had to be cycling. So yeah.
But talk about that, like those things that happen in life that are just like fate, or just those moments that are meant to happen, and you coming for backpacking and everything else that followed along with that. I'm like, that sounds like amazing to have you be here today. With that, it's really awesome.
The whole experience, I still remember being at university, and like at the time in the UK, it was kind of a little bit of a boom time. I had some money in the bank, and I almost bought a house in the UK, and I think I would have probably stayed there forever if I'd done that. The actual deal fell through, and the very next day a friend said, "Do you want to go to South America?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" From then, 3 months in South America. While I was in South America, another friend said, "Do you want to go to Thailand in November?" This was in March. I was like, well, got back to the UK, worked hard, saved money. Next time I was out, and then I just generally grew this feeling that I might not be living in England for the foreseeable future. And yeah, I applied to many jobs, and one in Japan popped up. And sometimes people say, "Why do you come to Japan?" And I kind of like, maybe Japan chose me in a way. I kind of like was actually applying for jobs everywhere, many countries, and I came to Japan. So that was 17 years ago, and I'm still here now.
That's just awesome, though. And I saw kind of pop around a little bit here, but one thing I was kind of interested in was that I know that you're based out of Osaka, but you also said that you have like a delivery service or things like that for your like for road bike rentals. How would they go about doing that if they're not able to just get to Osaka? That's not a part of their trip, or someone that's living in Japan that's looking to take advantage as well.
Sure. One of the reasons why, yeah, we went with the name Road Bike Rental Japan, and also just because we know that it's difficult to get bikes in remote areas. Yet at the same time, we know some of these remote areas are actually the best place to ride around on a bike. We thought, well, there's probably not enough demand just being in Osaka, so we need to kind of be able to get the bikes around the country. And Japan, one of the amazing things with Japan, if anyone's like traveled and used the courier services, you can leave your bags at the hotel and they will be delivered to leave your bags at the airport and they will be delivered to your hotel and things like that. There's some amazing services, and they do offer services that can actually ship bikes around. So we took advantage of that, and sometimes we've had clients cycle the length of the country, and we've never actually met them. Everything was done via email. We've explained how to kind of put the bike together when it's arrived, how to like basically get the bike back to us. And yeah, so some people have had these amazing adventures, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, cycling across Honshu, cycling across Shikoku, and we've hardly, we've not seen them. We've just kind of been emailing. Something that I guess now with the world of Zoom and so much video calling, it's something that we're starting to add as well, that we get a chance to actually do. We want to create a bond with the clients as well, and if they have any fears or issues or concerns, that we can kind of communicate using this now. I think everything prior to the pandemic was very much Gmail, just emailing back and forth and messaging. But the technology over the last couple of years is really come along, and I think it's a great chance to actually communicate with people before they come and get to know them, because our passion is sharing the adventure with them as well. It's not just about here's a bike, go for it type thing. We love reading where people went. We love reading the blogs. We love getting reviews when people tell us what they did, the photos. It's all part of like I think the motivation comes from that as well. So.
It's just so wonderful. I mean, like just be able to be where you're at and be offering what you have. And I can tell you, I mean, you're not kidding about these last few years. Like me as a teacher, when we went remote to now when the kids don't have a snow day anymore because they just get to work from home. It really does seem like there's a lot of things that are being offered, by you and your company. And to think that at one point in time you needed an alien registration card, and reentry permits and things like that. Gotta have changed, I think, from when you first arrived.
Sure, yeah. I remember just like arriving in Japan and being from the UK, and of course, not necessarily being super dependent on my parents or anything in that way. I went to uni in another city and just got on with my life. But there isn't the admin side of things, like living in the UK. Just kind of get on with your life. You don't need to register yourself as a foreign, or you're living in this part of town. And even Japanese people, they have a family register. There's a lot of paperwork involved. If you need to prove who you are, there's you've got to take a trip to the ward office and just kind of always kind of jumping through these little hoops just to kind of stay in Japan. It's less now because I'm a resident in Japan.
Okay.
But when I first came, I think every year I had to go get a new visa. Then of course I had to go get re-entry permits. So at that time I was loving like spending a bit of time teaching English, but then I'd travel to like Bali or Thailand and travel locally, Philippines, and just kind of do all these great things like a 20-year-old without kids could actually probably get away with doing type thing. But the money was coming in and the freedom of being in Asia, it was like an amazing time. But you just had to keep up with this paperwork process. Eventually, the Japanese government introduced I became a resident, but then the Japanese government introduced the My Card. So that kind of covers so much for me now. And with the resident status, I don't need to kind of get these extra stamps at the airport. I can join it's great getting off a plane from Europe and have almost like my own queue now. Like everyone's queuing up, the Japanese queuing up over here, the foreign, and I've just got like my own. Anyone who's living in Japan and they've got the resident card, you just show that and you're straight in. It's been good. I think it's probably changed with the pandemic checks and stuff now, so I'm a little bit reluctant to go back to the UK at the moment. More just waiting for things to settle down a little bit more.
Yeah.
But in terms of the admin side of things, it's a little bit easier now. And I think for anyone who wants to not just visit Japan but maybe work in Japan, I think it's a little bit easier than it was a few years ago. So.
Awesome. No, I and to think like you said, you started with English school about for 10 years, and like you said, you wanted to start your own business. When was it that you ended up kind of like deciding that like this is the time that I want to start this?
Sure, yeah, like in 2015, I was in a management position. I was almost like the second regional manager in Western Japan, I think. And it was the only way for me to continue in the company was to really move to Tokyo. And I just started a family in Osaka, and it was clear that I had some great staff working with me, and that because I was here, they weren't getting a chance to move on too. But at the same time, in the back of my head, there was a start your own business, start your own business, start your own business. And once I became resident, the flexibility to do that became a little bit easier too. So I guess the stars aligned and I was able to think, okay, yeah, I can actually give it a go. At the same time, my son was born, so I had a little bit of paternity leave, so I could kind of look after him, but also just work on the PC, get the website going, and with some help from friends around me, we were getting stuff going, and then I think it was May 2016 we had our first customer, and actually that very first customer was a delivery, a young guy from Malaysia. His dream was to cycle around Mount Fuji, and at that time we only had like 2 bikes basically, so we didn't have a big selection of bikes. We were just testing the waters. Is there a demand for this? And he went up and we sent the bike up, and he cycled around Mount Fuji and just said, I've made his dream come true. And I was just like, wow, I didn't really think about that. I guess for some people, cycling in Japan, that is kind of a dream. And we started a business that was helping people do that. And my own passion for cycling has grown, and there's a lot of I think actually not just myself, but I think for all the guys that I see working related to cycling in Japan, one, they love Japan, and two, they love cycling. And it's not like it's not a business for the sake of being a business. It's a business, it's because it's their passion, and they just want to share cycling in Japan with everyone. There's I say competitors, but we all work together. There's a lot of communication and different things going on, and everyone is just eagerly awaiting tourism to come back and to get more people cycling in Japan. And because it is such a cyclist paradise, bit of a cliche, there's many cyclist paradises everywhere, but once you get out of the city, there's just so much on offer. It's amazing.
And that's one thing that I'm looking to take advantage of too. Like I said, something I wish I would have thought about ahead of time, but this is like why we're talking today, so someone else doesn't make my mistake, and kind of explore a little more and see more of Japan than just those main places. Because I mean, from where you are in Osaka, some of those routes you were talking about doesn't take you long, and you're gonna get a totally different side of Japan than you would have if you had just stayed to the subways and things like that. So just unbelievable. And to think that you started off kind of housing all of these bikes in your home. I mean, how understanding and patient your wife must be, to have that. But when did you end up seeing that, like, I need to move out of these bikes out of my house?
Sure, like the first couple of years we were just testing, and I was still working as an English school manager after the paternity leave, and like with a friend we worked out who's going to cover meeting the clients, and the clients would just pick the bike up from the shop, which was my house, and we'd set them up on their way. Generally, we always try to get back to meet the client, but sometimes it would be a case, please leave the bike outside and just lock it up. It's Japan, it's super safe. Rarely, there's stories occasionally of bikes going missing, but I've 7 years of business now, we've been lucky. The current shop has cameras outside and everything, so all that. But I think Japan's pretty safe, and riding around, I don't think this business would work in some other countries. The UK, I'm from the UK, so I don't think it would work if I could go missing. But it's a place where it can trust people, and the business can be here. So going back to the original question, I think we got to about 20 bikes, and we were getting more requests. And the shop now is next to the Olgawa cycle lane, which leads on to the Yodogawa cycle lane, which actually can take you all the way to Kyoto. So whenever I was cycling on my way out, a little bit of a workout, I would always see this area, and there was always this building, like a long time ago, that just kind of was calling my name, I think, and I just thought that would be like the perfect place to get the business going. And it was pretty much a garage, really. There was no windows, there was there was just the shutters. But I've now, during the pandemic, I've been kind of getting things done, and we've got windows in, we've got a small terrace there. The terrace is actually turned into a bike wash as well. So when people are not drinking coffee, there's also the option that they can wash their bike. There's a coin timer, and there's all these things. And that happened in 2019 in January. and we were like just so over the moon. We had our own premises because there was always, we had Japanese clients, and in the email with foreigners, we would just say, this is our address, this is a family home, but we provide the bikes and the service. It never impacted the service, but maybe from the Japanese level, it kind of, maybe people would rock up and, oh, it's a house, and maybe the level of professionalism was kind of like in question, straight away. So now having a shop, just having that kind of go-to location on Google Maps. It was always on Google Maps, but now it's on Google Maps, and it's just kind of easy to find right next to the station. So yeah, moving here in 2019, just prior to the pandemic, was, I think it's been a good thing. I've had to cover rent during the pandemic and stuff, but we're all waiting for the official real green light to let's all get traveling again. So
That's outstanding, Gareth. And gonna take a pause here and I kind of like to just ask you, just in general, like, what are some of your biggest Japan interests?
yeah, it's there's so many. It's kind of tricky to pinpoint the one that I like the most, because cycling is a big thing in my life. I love just traveling around, and I think Jeff would kind of talk about this as well. When you're just traveling, you're just absorbing. So I guess
Yes.
my thing to do is absorbing. Just even if I go down a road that I've been before, many even around my neighborhood, sometimes just you look at a different, look in a certain way, and you look up at a different angle, you might see something completely different that you've never seen before. And Jeff was talking about the manhole covers and how artistic they are. There's the artistic manhole covers. I sometimes see little statues in the walls, and you're like, oh wow, little statue's kind of cute. And then you see engravings written in buildings that you never noticed before, and you're just like, wow, I've walked past this 100 times and I've never seen that before. And you're like, is that new? You're always asking yourself, is that new? But it's just because you've not looked in that angle, and just kind of suddenly see something, and you're like, oh, that's so cool, type thing. And that's after 17 years of living here. I still see these new things, and that's in familiar grounds. Going to new areas that I've not been to, then it's just like, oh wow, it's amazing. There's so many so many cool things to see, and you just kind of absorb it all in. It's amazing.
It sounds like we have that in common, and because I really feel like it takes some time, or maybe someone could go their lifetime without finding it, but Japan for me is definitely my happy place. Probably just one that I wish I would have found a little bit earlier on in my life, but at some point in time, I'm going to be over in Japan and living, just doing things a little backwards is all. So, but hearing you talk about it is a lot like every time I go back. Someone asked recently at my school when I was talking to them, and they're like, "How can you go back to the same country so many times? Like, don't you ever get tired of it?" I'm like, no, I really don't. I'm like, there's so much to do there. And I know some of it's just that luck of being on vacation and having that openness that may not be there if you're kind of trying to do what you need to on a daily basis. But anywhere you can go and be in a coffee shop and then be involved with celebrating someone's birthday for a few hours, just out of the blue, is definitely a country that, just keeps me coming back. I love it. I love it. And what are, for you, some of your favorite foods or places that you might like visit in Japan for snacks, meals, other things like that? What are your go-tos?
Yeah, yeah, too many to mention. Hence the expanding waistline at the moment. Yeah, my kids, as talking about young kids, over the last few years, we've gone to the traditional family restaurants,
Yes.
and these are kind of restaurant chains that are geared to looking after families. And, yeah, there's a lot of very kids meal. There's kids meals very focused on like entertaining the kids. They get a toy, and salads and pastas and stuff for the adults, and it's not very exciting unless you're 4 years old. But something that I love, Japan's a very sociable place. I think Osaka comes alive at night often is the case. Everyone's going to work during the day. Everyone's just kind of moving through their life. But nighttime, there's just this different atmosphere completely, and it's not like a full-on party atmosphere, but there is a general, all right, let's go out, let's eat. The Japan, Osaka's the kitchen of Japan, isn't it? I hear this expression sometimes, and there's just so many great places to go. But now the kids are older, something that I've really been missing is the kind of the restaurants where you have to cook your own food, where the center of the table has a grill, and you've got yakiniku, which is like the Korean barbecue. So they bring out the raw cuts of meat, and you sit there cooking. You've got shabu shabu, so they bring the thin slices of meat, and you've got to dip it in the soup, and it cooks there very quickly. And we've just not been able to do that because fear of burns and stuff. So we are getting to that stage now where we can go out again and enjoy yakiniku and shabu shabu. And I've even had okonomiyaki, which is the meal from Osaka, one of the specialties in Osaka. And there's a hot plate in front of you, and you kind of it's almost like cooking an omelette in a way, I guess is the nearest thing I could say. Cook an omelette and make that in front of you. But it's the experience. I think like chain restaurant, great, you get your food kind of quickly, but it's just you could be eating a meal at home, where these kind of restaurants there's a lot more just kind of interaction with the staff. There's kind of the whole experience and the whole process. So if you've not been to Japan before, or maybe listeners who have been to Japan, they know this kind of feeling, and it's just a great experience. It's probably lubricated by some alcohol in the mix as well, but generally it's just a great experience rather than the chain restaurant. So
I love it. And what if you're going to? I know, like you said, your passion is definitely cycling. I can hear it, see it in your smile, like everything that you have for things that are here. But if you're not going to be cycling, what is your kind of like go-to location for Japan?
Mostly anywhere I can entertain two young children. Basically, they love parks. They love being outside. A lot of my own bike rides turn into little kind of reconnaissance missions to see where there's parks and new places to take them. So there's a justification to the wife while I'm cycling on my work day. But yeah, the anywhere there's parks and a beach, we love the beach. The beaches here. We're pretty close to Lake Biwa in Osaka. We have a car, so in the summer months we kind of head up to Lake Biwa. We do a bit of camping up there with friends. The water's so calm compared to like the other coastal beaches. I think it's great for the kids. There's quite a few children's beaches up there, and there's also a lot of fantastic scenery. It's just like amazing to look around and take it all in. The water's not salty there, so as well that's another little plus. So yeah, I think over the years, like the kids are at that stage where as much as you want to show them the history and the culture and go to these fantastic places in Japan, it's not really going to appeal to them.
Right.
So anything that's kind of entertaining, and there's like amusement parks and things like that. So it's just kind of trying to keep them entertained, basically. So, but it's like we, as a family, we go to places and then find somewhere new. So it either works in one way that we go as a family and I find somewhere that I want to go cycling, or I go cycling and find somewhere that I want to go as a family. So, but generally, like in the summer months, we spent a lot of time either at Lake Biwa and a little bit of time in Owajishima, which is the island connecting Shikoku and Honshu. It's kind of a small island, but there's some pretty decent beaches there. It's just, again, it's salt water compared to the Biwa, but in terms of distance from Osaka, they're pretty similar, and they've both got their own cycling route, so it's always good to kind of check these things out too while I'm there.
I like it. And I remember like the times too with my kids, we'd take them to the zoo, and then my son just wanted to watch the construction equipment, and we didn't have to walk anywhere. It's what he was entertained by. So it's definitely finding all those. And I know you've talked about some of these as well. I said, but what are some of your hobbies that you have outside of cycling?
So yeah, like these days, spending so much time looking after kids, I almost forget what I enjoy doing actually. But I enjoy looking after my kids, of course, but from the UK, so I've played a lot of soccer over the years. There's a group of friends. We've been playing like soccer in Japan for a long time. We used to attend tournaments and stuff, but over the years we've all got a little bit slower, and other sports and stuff we've taken up. When I was backpacking, I really loved scuba diving, and my wife and I we did a few trips where we would go scuba diving. Sometimes in Japan, we went down to Okinawa. There's some amazing scuba diving in Okinawa. We did have an experience in Wakayama, but it was after a kind of a typhoon, and we couldn't see anything, so we had to cancel the second dive. But I do remember a very beautiful scuba dive down in Okayama many years ago. So in Okinawa many years ago. So, but yeah, there was a period when I was working that golf came into the mix. Anyone who's kind of worked in Japan, there's probably a lot of the Japanese staff love golf. So that became a little bit of a thing that my wife and I did with the in-laws. Actually, my brother-in-law is a big golfer. So every Obon, we'd go up to Kanazawa, my wife's hometown, and we'd one of the days would be allocated to walking around the golf course. I would like to say hitting balls, but it didn't always happen that way. But the scenery up there was spectacular, because that was in the Noto area, so you've Noto Country Club, and you've got like the coastal, like it's kind of quite a rugged coastline up at Noto, and it's another place. Just you're playing golf and you're looking at these amazing kind of seascapes and stuff. So just again, Japan has so much beauty everywhere, but yeah, hobbies that take me places. I kind of. My son's becoming a little bit of a gamer, and growing up, I've never been a gamer. We've started to play Mario Kart a little bit, but I've never been a gamer really. I think it's too addictive. I think if I started to play, I'd probably just get like hooked, and just you'd never get me off a Nintendo or whatever. But so I always like doing outdoor things as much as possible. So because when there's a rainy day, you're going to be stuck indoors anyway, so you might as well get out on the days that you can get out and enjoy it. So
I agree, and I really like your travel hack that you talked about for Japan as well. Could you talk about that for us?
yeah, sure. So I think there's so much focus on people getting the JR pass. There's excellent marketing from JR. There's a good deal that you can get your JR pass and travel across Japan using the Shinkansen. And I think so many people do that and they have a great time, and it's just an amazing experience. What people probably don't often consider is that Japan is an island nation, and a great way to get around island nations is, kind of island hopping. And Japan has so many fantastic ferry services. And especially for the guys with the bikes, instead of having to kind of bag up the bike and taking it on the train, you can actually walk on some of the ferries. And if it's an overnight ferry, some ferries you can actually take the bike into the room. So we recently went down to Shikoku. There's a ferry from Osaka to Ekime Prefecture, and it's at the bottom end of the Shinamami Kaido, which is a very popular cycle route. So it's one option to do that. But I really wanted to go to Shimanto River, but I always thought it was too far away. And then my wife had a 3-day, I think a 4-day break. And I said, well, if you can finish work at a decent time and we can get the ferry overnight, then we wake up in our location, and then it's much easier. And the ferry it's like a hotel. It was the orange ferry between Osaka and Ekime. It's just unbelievable. And there's a mini onsen on there. So even if you haven't had your bath, you can get your onsen on there. There's meals there. There's vending machines. So there's even little game rooms and stuff to entertain the kids for a moment. But the actual departure is at 10 o'clock at night, and you arrive at 6 o'clock in the morning. You've got the option to stay in bed until 7, but the actual wake up call, we've arrived, is 5:30. So it is good to get an early night on that one. But just being able to take the ferry and wake up in a new location, instead of maybe thinking that I've got to stay near a station, I've got to get to the station and then jump on the train, head wherever. I think just the ferries are fantastic alternative to getting around Japan, especially between like Osaka down to Shikoku, and even there's ferries down to Beppu and Oita and Kyushu. So it's a great way. And I think if people are on budget, when I was a backpacker, I thought if I'm traveling overnight, then that's one less hotel that I don't need to pay for, type thing. So yeah, if you're thinking, oh, I'll stay on here and then take the train down in the morning, take a ferry. Enjoy the experience of taking a ferry in Japan.
Love it, love it. And I know we're all waiting for tourism to finally return. When it does, like open back up and we have some things coming, if there was somebody who is looking for some possible employment with your company or similar ones, like you said that you'd have, what would you be like your recommendation for them?
Sure. At the moment, of course, we're still waiting a little bit, so not actively looking for people, but there is that kind of feeling that it's time to just get ready for tourism. So I think if people are just looking at our social media, I will be posting job ads on there, and kind of just a, kind of getting a general sense. But I think of course, it's also good to know the company. So if if people are looking to work and cycle in Japan, and use it as a kind of a job experience in Japan, then yeah, start following us there, and then you can get an idea of what we're about as well. So,
Awesome. And now I'd like to kind of
sorry,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, I guess I just if someone did have like an amazing skill set, they love cycling, they speak Japanese, they can work with computers, and by all means send us an email in advance as well. We could can always consider that as well.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. And now I'd like to kind of just transition ourselves over towards kind of like your services that you offer, your website, the Road Bike Rental Japan. And I know that you've talked about your role as the English school manager that you did, and kind of setting those the businesses up, and like you getting to the point that was there. So if you don't mind, I said, why don't you go ahead and talk about some of your favorite routes that you'd recommend to someone like myself who would like to bicycle, to bicycle when they're in Japan, but may not be an avid cyclist. Like, what would be your recommendations?
Sure. Yeah, I'm actually in the thought process of making a route video. It's coming fairly soon. It's in my mind. It's just, yeah, I need to find the time to make that. But I think the best routes in Japan is something that, yeah, deserves a video from us, because we do get a lot of feedback from clients about where to go, and with my own experiences of where to go. And I think for a beginner or someone with kind of maybe little experience, then the Shinamami Kaido is probably one of the main places. I'm pretty sure Jeff mentioned this in the last podcast. But the bridges that link across from Honshu to Shikoku, yeah, it's just stunning scenery all the way. It's not necessarily difficult. There are some tricky ascents to the bridges, but again, yeah, there's so many services offering pretty decent road bikes down that way. There's also like e-bike options. There's a lot of mamacharis, the granny bikes, but just
Yes.
please don't, because you see a lot of people walking up the hills. It's not. I don't think that would be a fun experience. You think you're going to do a bike ride and you end up having to walk up the hill because you're on a 1,000 yen per day mamachari with no gears. So I would recommend that you always just try to get a geared bike at least for that. The other route that I cycled around last summer, actually, and I've mentioned it with the kids, is the Lake Biwa. There's a nice loop around Lake Biwa. It's just over about 200 kilometers. There's a lot to. If you did it, there are people that do it in one day. There's the hardcore cyclists that they just want to do it and get around pretty fast. I would recommend doing it over 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
It's very accessible from Kyoto. So just kind of heading over from Kyoto to maybe Otsu, start at the south end, and then cycle around. And there's a few sites to see along the way as well. But it's a nice. I did it in summertime, and it was nice. There was seeing everyone camping. There was that kind of. It felt like it was a coastline because the sea's there, and the you've got beautiful kind of blue skies as well, but it, you know, it's a lake, and yeah, it's nice if you, especially if you like camping. When I did it, I had the one man tent, so I kind of cycled up, stayed the night at a campsite, woke up very early, about 4 o'clock in the morning, and there was this amazing sunrise, and then carried on down. So I think, yeah, Lake Biwa and the Shinamami Kaido, they get a lot of attention. I think they're being marketed because they are a little bit easier, but they are definitely good route for I say beginners to, yeah, maybe people that want to consider getting into cycling.
It's awesome. And then in that same kind of thing, if you're going to be recommending routes that are more challenging for our listeners that are actually avid cyclists like yourself, what would you end up recommending?
So I think there's a lot of amazing routes, and as I said, that's why I think a video needs to be made. I mentioned it in a recent video about an FAQ, just a quick go over like these routes are there, but I do need to give it a bit more time. But the route that I spent a lot of time on last year was the Kainawa cycle route, and this joins basically from Kyoto through Nara all the way down to Wakayama, and there's not a lot written about it. And I think personally, not personally, but I think from observing from the outside a little bit, I think because it crosses into three different prefectures, each prefecture has their own kind of budget and how much they're interested in cycling, or maybe how much they actually want cyclists from overseas in their, you know, kind of in their area type thing. So I think like Kyoto are really trying to push the Kainawa cycle route. They've recently resurfaced and repainted their parts, but as soon as you cross into the Nara section, Nara talk, they kind of, all the signs are referring to their old Nara routes, and there's not much focus on the Kainawa cycle route. It's there, and then maybe in patches you might have a district of Kyoto that maybe there's nothing else that they're kind of got going type thing, so they're kind of encouraging people to cycle through at least. Then suddenly you see the line appear again, and it's just, I kind of don't want to criticize it. It seems like it may be mismanaged, or there's not like, let's all work on this amazing route together between the different prefectures. But it is there, and I think it's an amazing route to just ride from Arashiyama or start in Wakayama, depending on direction, and connect all of these. And most of it is flat, and most of it is actually on a cycle path. So it is fairly easy. The reason I didn't put it into the first answer is because there is still a bit of a big climb at Yoshino in Nara. There's still a bit of a big climb. So if you're kind of a beginner, then it may be a little bit more challenging. So, but it's 180 kilometers, and again, it's recommended that you do it over a couple of periods. And the thing that I like about this is it's kind of the route. So think of it as an expressway that you would take to go to the places that you want to go, rather than being the actual main attraction. I think the Shinamami Kaido and Lake Biwa, they are kind of the main attraction. The actual route themselves are part of like the marketing. But I think the Kainawa cycle route is actually the route that joins all of these amazing places, and that may be the other thing why it's not getting as much attention, because it's just this kind of route that's there rather than being an actual spectacle. And it's just connecting all of this amazing stuff. This is connecting Kyoto with Nara. You know, you can ride to Nara, you don't need to take the train, yeah, and then you can carry on all the way to Wakayama. And then I guess a little bit more of a challenge and a step. I personally, if I had kind of a couple of weeks off to just escape, I think I would do the Kainawa cycle route, take the ferry from Wakayama and go to Shikoku, and then cycle around Shikoku. Again, Shikoku a little bit more rugged. There's a lot, probably for the more challenging kind of the rider that's looking for a bigger challenge than Shikoku itself. And it's 1,000 kilometers or so to go loop all the way around. There is marketing on that by the prefectures in Shikoku, but again, it's still a large, kind of mostly in Japanese at the moment. I do see little bits of English information popping up, but again, there's I guess maybe because of the domestic focus on domestic travel within Japan a little bit at the moment, there's kind of a lot of materials about traveling and cycling for Japanese people, rather than kind of, yeah, the world is getting ready to open, and everyone, let's go traveling again. So
And I you said like in Shikoku that like when I had kind of like was talking to you a little bit beforehand, um, what is something that maybe our listeners might not expect?
Sure, it's a good question. I think like the hospitality in the more rural areas. So I think everyone has their own experience of the bigger cities, and some are like, oh, it's amazing, I've had a great time. Some might be unfortunate, they might come across someone who might be a bit cold, but like it happens, wherever you are. I think there's people might be, busy with their own work life and other things going on. So, but like so many of our clients that have gone into the countryside have come back and just be like, oh, people are so friendly. Like Shikoku especially, so many of our clients went on to longer tours, went quite deep into the countryside, and I think one of the things that I've loved about this business is whenever people left, they kind of went with a little bit of apprehension, and whenever they've come back, they've just been all smiles and just glowing and just been like, oh, we've just had like the best adventure cycle around in Shikoku. We've met so many great people. We've got friends forever, type thing. And yeah, like some of the kindness, like the stories of kindness that I've heard is like, because Shikoku, it's quite a rural area with a lot of agriculture, then seasonal fruits are on offer. And sometimes farmers would just be like, hey, have an orange, have this, have a kaki. So like there's kind of all sorts of like gifts being given just because you're riding along the road and stuff like that. It's not kind of disclaimer,
Not
it
all the
doesn't
time.
happen all the
Yeah.
time, but yeah, it's I've heard actually so many stories of this. I've heard people like being bought ice creams on hot days. Maybe the car went by, they saw the cyclist, they stopped off at the convenience, and then when the cyclists have come in, there's like, oh, there's some ice creams for you. You look like you're working hard and stuff. And then yeah, even invitations to dinner, and people. A lot of the farmers, they kind of eat barbecues outside, in when the weather's nice, and they kind of just wherever they've got space, that oh, we're having a barbecue tonight. Come, swing by and stuff like that. So there's just so much hospitality in these kind of areas, and yeah, I've had some nice things, just like small gifts here and there, and the occasional invite, but just not really having the time, and it's not really worked out. But it's just kind of like blown away by some of the stories that people have kind of said when they've come back from cycling in Shikoku, especially.
Love it, love it. And then so for example, like if someone was looking to take advantage of your service, for the day, just to get away, or for multiple days, what would that end up looking like for someone?
Sure. So we've got a tiered pricing system, and the road bikes at the moment start. I say start. It's kind of the most you'll pay for a day. But what the tier is 1 to 3 days, and that would be 5,500 yen including tax, and then for the touring bike 4,400 yen including tax. We don't just provide the bike. There's a helmet included. There's everything that you kind of need: the light, the bow, insurance. So there's all these things that we've added in that package. So it's not just you're not just getting the bike. People like we have a few different types of pedals that we can put on, or people are welcome to bring their own as well, and we can put them on depending what shoes you've got. But with the tiered system, gradually as the rental period gets longer, then it can come down to about 2,000 yen per day. And there's also kind of discounts if there's a large group as well. There's discounts. So most of the system online is kind of like the final price. But if it is a big group for a long period, then reach out with an email, because we can make a proposal and try and reduce it. The same with delivery, because actually the pricing with delivery is fixed because it's the courier fee. We don't actually kind of make much on the courier fee. It's just like maybe just a quick handling charge. It's our time packing the bike and sending it and stuff, but it's not much kind of on that. We just charge effectively what the couriers charge, and that covers the expense of that. But getting the actual main service, sorry, yeah, just because of the actual time sending the bikes, we need to check that the bike is available for the next client. So that's more why we can't really automate the delivery side of things. So we do ask people just to shoot us an email about any bike deliveries. I'd love to get to that stage where everything is automated, but it just wouldn't work. I think it does need someone watching over it and stuff. So yeah.
That's great. And then when I was looking through your website and things, I saw that you rent out kind of like a do-it-yourself maintenance work studio, and then you also have a like area kind of for like or like services for kind of like washing and cleaning your bikes as well. Could you tell us a little bit more about that as well?
Sure, yeah, of course, during the pandemic, we've had to kind of diversify a little bit and look at kind of ways to introduce services for the local kind of cycling community, whether Japanese or whether internationals living here. Um, the idea was basically, yeah, we've got this shop that we've had and we've got these tools and we've got this service, and like maybe utilizing what we already have during the time when, you know, kind of we're not sure when revenue's kind of really coming back. It was all very much like survival mode for the first, definitely for the first year. So I just started to kind of introduce ways that I could make these kind of services accessible for other people. And so basically, yeah, there's a bike wash outside. When we're not here, I've added a coin timer, so even if people just want to rinse their bike, and then also the option of having us wash the bike, etc., is there. But this is not just for locals. There are cyclists who bring their own bikes to Japan, and you know maybe they're on the 3 month kind of tour. They're maybe moving on to another country. They're cycling around the world, but you know, like dealing with local bike shops when there might be a language barrier. There's also kind of the pricing, labor cost, etc. And I thought, well, you know, one thing that I could introduce is a kind of a work studio where people can come in and fix their own bikes. I'm still working on the best way to price this. I'd love to get to a membership level for the locals and be like, you can repair your bike, you can wash your bike, you can come get a coffee, that kind of thing for the locals. But again, there's also those coming from overseas. So I want to kind of factor everything in. But the services are available, so it's just another way to kind of, yeah, when dealing with a pandemic and I guess shortages with the rentals over the last couple of years, it's a way that we can kind of, I guess, stabilize the income a little bit. Got this space, and it's an amazing space. It's right next to the Sakura no Miya station, um, and Sakura no Miya basically is one of the main cherry blossom viewing areas in Osaka. So last month it was, yeah, so many people outside, and the view from the shop is just absolutely stunning. The same in autumn, all these leaves change to the koyo. Yes. You've got the red leaves, and it's just an amazing place to be. I love coming. My house is very close, but I love coming here and just when I lose track of what I'm doing, I'm often just like looking out the window, looking at the nature. There's Osaka's generally got, there's a lot of buildings. There's a big place, a main city, but I'm very lucky that on the green belt. And I always thought, well, wouldn't, because we are next to the cycle route as well, it would be nice to have cyclists come in and chat. And also just finding a place that after, if someone's done a big tour of Shikoku, that they can kind of come here and sit down and just relax and have a coffee, and we get to know them a little bit, but just kind of I wanted to make like a club or a base that people can come and talk about cycling, meet other cyclists, and just start sharing this and creating a community of cyclists, whether they live in Osaka or not. So it's just, it's kind of, I've been learning how to make proper coffee and waffles and things. So, and at the end of last year, I had to do the food hygiene tests and things like that in Japanese, which is an experience in itself.
Don't doubt
So
it.
it's just kind of, the coffee shop's ready to go, and it seems a bit strange to say, but with the COVID years, I think a lot of these ideas I wouldn't manage to have gotten to. I would have just been kind of focused on the rentals and I guess kind of, a little bit, I don't know, it could be a waste of time later down the line, I'm not sure, but I think I've had so much time, and the devil finds work for idle hands type thing. So I've just been, everyone, I'm always busy, but not necessarily busy type of thing. So, but it's just fun. It's like my passion project, and I just love sharing, people sharing the experience of cycling in Japan with those that come to us. So
I like it. And then I know we've touched about a couple of these things already. But for you, I know COVID being one of them, but like, what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing in your role? Kind of with your business, the project, and everything that you're going on. Like, how are you going about tackling that? I know you just mentioned quite a bit of things that you're doing, but is there anything else you want to kind of add on to that?
yeah, kind of at the moment, I guess the challenge is kind of knowing when tourism will return. I think all of the cycling community, or those that work in tourism and cycling, they're all kind of like, we're not sure. We need to kind of start moving in the right direction and maybe start thinking about getting tour guides again, but we're not sure. There's a little bit of blind planning. There's still kind of a lot of, there's tight restrictions still. There's an election coming in Japan very soon, which could kind of change, the current feeling towards tight travel restrictions. So there's kind of a lot in the air at the moment. So it's, kind of just for me, keeping the business ticking over, adding these new services, so kind of it's more, they're more robust, I guess, in the future. Should there be, another, variant, or I think even way back in 2011 when the earthquake struck, yeah, that was a pretty big one, and tourism kind of dropped off, and that's why the white paper that came out to promote tourism and the Olympics and the Rugby World Cup and so much came from that. So I think 2019 saw so much tourism, so everyone was expecting the Olympics and like, great, 2020 is coming, and then it just completely dropped off, and kind of just dealing with that and kind of getting back to kind of just feeling normality and being able to run services in a kind of the way that it is a daily kind of job that you go to and you meet clients, and that's it. Where at the moment it's kind of, clients are coming, local clients are here at the weekend. Sometimes you get someone who's living in Japan visit, so it's very like here and there at the moment. But just the stability of going to work, having regular local tours, and having regular kind of clients that are, shipping the bikes off to wherever. There was this kind of feeling that the business was definitely heading in the right direction after years of starting it and just getting it kind of warmed up. It wasn't like an instant overnight success, but it felt like we were definitely heading in the right direction. And then I guess the challenge to me is to try and kind of manage all that. I've added so many services, but these are all ideas in my head that I then must follow up on. So I kind of feel the challenge to myself is that I have too many ideas in my head. I've got to kind of maybe ease up on trying to offer these new services, maybe ease up on just, kind of getting back to the rental side of things, but still trying to manage those services that we've kind of introduced during the pandemic. And then, of course, I'm a house husband, so trying to balance all that with looking after two young children. I kind of need to keep my sanity as well a little bit, I think. So.
What is one piece of advice outside of using your service, like, for Road Bike Rental Japan, that you'd give to someone who's starting to look into lodging for their next trip?
Sure, it's a good question. I think for me, if I may, and it might not necessarily be the answer that you're looking for, but I'd like to encourage listeners to stay with the smaller private and family-owned guest house, and lodgings as much as possible. I think, I don't want to kind of put corporations down, but a lot of the bigger hotels are owned by bigger companies, and they had maybe if the accommodation side of things not going well, they've got another part of their business that they can focus on, or they've got a stronger domestic kind of client base, where private businesses and kind of like family owned kind of like restaurants and lodgings, the tourism was everything. Tourism was everything, and it kind of vanished suddenly. So there's so many businesses that have folded, and I think everyone's just been probably similar to me, trying to keep the business going, but keeping ways to kind of improve their business so that when tourism does come back, the services are even better than they were before. And so I kind of, yeah, I just think that would be a kind of a nice kind of thing to do, is to stay at like family guest house and privately owned guest house. And I think, you know, the bigger companies, they have corporate connections that will kind of help them as well. So I think, yeah, like it's just nice to kind of give the small businesses a chance. I see it restaurants as well. The restaurants, they've been closed for a long time,
Yes.
but you know, McDonald's is always open and things like that. So all these smaller businesses have really had it quite hard. So I think, yeah, just lodgings and eating out. Try to find the little mum and pop shops and these kind of things. I think that's yeah. And I guess be patient as well. I think these guys have also had a little bit of a stressful period. So the rebound tourism thing, you know, as I said, we don't know when it's coming, but it's coming, and you know, everyone's trying to get ready for it. But you know, there might be a case that, you know, you might be staying at a Minshuku owned by a, you know, 70-year-old retiree, and they think they're ready, but then when tourism comes and yeah, like someone's maybe got requests that they're kind of not used to, they might be like, ah. So I think just, yeah, just be patient as well. Yeah, I think yeah, I think it's easy as tourists, we kind of think the bar is high, and you know, I think it should be, but at the same time, I think, you know, you're dealing with an individual that might have been, you know, kind of through, you know, hell and back over the last couple of years a little bit, and I kind of feel, yeah, I kind of sympathise for them at the same time, but they should have a, yeah, a professional level of service as well. So, but yeah, just, yeah, I think we too, for tourism to come back in a nice harmonic way, I think just kind of, yeah, everyone should just be kind of like a little bit patient and look to support the smaller businesses.
Yeah, for me, it's like it is like if it happened to open up and we're here during the summer, it's like, you know, if you're making yourself over, it's kind of like you want to be good impressions too, and have people want to open back up more, and you know, have more of us be allowed in. And I recommend, you know, I was looking back through when I was sitting down with my son, kind of looking at favorite places that I ate and did, and so many of those have closed since last I was there. And you know, I think that's a great recommendation. Just try to hit outside of those chain areas, and I think that's perfect. And so now I just want to get back to yourself and your site here. We're nearing the end. Thank you so much, Gareth, like for toughing it out with me here today. But what are some of your like favorite podcasts, YouTube shows? Could be on Japan or other topics. What are some things that you like to, like you said, limited free time, but if you do have that, like where do you find yourself?
Sure, I'm, you know, fascinated by the tourism business, and so recently I do listen to Tourpreneur a lot. It's a great podcast for those working in tourism. The podcaster Shane, he's worked in tourism for a long time. He has a lot of great guests on, so he offers a real service. And it kind of came out during the pandemic, and I was just like, you know, this guy's kind of got everyone's backs and supporting, and he's providing these amazing podcasts, and just it just become a really useful resource. But yeah, I think it's a kind of fantastic that to again yourself as well, just to be a podcaster and be out there and offering these channels to one provide information to your listener, to the listeners, but also to give a chance to, you know, the likes of myself and Jeff to kind of have a voice as well. So it's yeah, it's really good, and I think Shane's an excellent kind of podcaster with actually amazing guests that all collectively have so much experience in working with tourism and traveling. And it's not necessarily Japan specific, but still there's a lot of takeaways from each of the podcasts. So it's good. And then as a little bit of more, it's cycling and it's business, but it's also a little bit more humorous. I love watching the GCN show. It's originally from England, but there's a lot of, you know, cycling when you're on your own, and you know, it's hard to find humor in cycling sometimes. But the guys on yeah, Daniel Lloyd and Simon Richardson, they it's very entertaining, and I love watching that show. So that's just a little escape when I get 5 minutes away from the kids. So.
I love it. I love it. And then one thing I noticed too, when you were like when I was perusing your site and kind of going through, one thing I saw that you're currently in the midst of some fundraising with the World Bicycle Relief, and your this pedal to empower. That's going to be coming up here right around my birthday, my friend. So what can you tell us all about that?
Happy birthday for then. I had mine last week actually, so that's why I think my waistline's a little bit bigger. But yeah, World Bicycle Day is coming on June 3rd. So I've actually been I became aware of World Bicycle Relief through the GCN show. They do a lot of advocacy for them, and yeah, I think during the pandemic, I kind of wanted to think about what kind of business that I want to be an owner of, and think about how to be kind of socially responsible and do what I can. And I think so many businesses are now kind of thinking that's an important thing to as we move forward and with the UN SDGs. So cycle tourism, many people still think cycling is green, but at the same time, there's so much. I found like when I was replacing tubes and parts that there was a lot of wastage and stuff. So I kind of wondered what I could do with these kind of things. So I started to think about how I can make the business a little bit more more socially responsible. So yeah, after discovering the World Bicycle Relief, I sent them an email and kind of was communicating with Kemi over there, and yeah, she announced that because of the World Bicycle Day coming in June, they were having a kind of an effort and calling it the pedal to empower movement, and they wanted just people to ride bikes at the end of the day. That's just kind of raising the awareness. And everyone's on social media these days, getting photos and spreading a little bit of kind of information about all sorts of things. And I thought, wow, it would be great if I could kind of get a group together, get some rides organized, and there's a fundraiser option too. And I've never done a fundraiser in my life, and but I thought maybe I'll give it a go and try. And so I've put up these routes, and I've got some people donating. And thank you very much, Michael, for your donation. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Gareth, so much. I do appreciate your thanks for for the donation too. And I just want to say that if any of you are thinking, I don't ask for funds or anything like that, but if you're looking to buy myself a birthday present for this for my 44th coming up here, I would greatly appreciate if you kind of went over and did a donation for this fundraising event here. I would mean an awful lot just for me to have it actually go towards something that doesn't increase my waistline. I'll do that on my own. So could you tell us a little bit more about that, Gareth?
Sure. So the events are aimed increasing the awareness, but the actual kind of the pedal to empower movement is aimed at kind of overcoming the barrier of distance. So I think as a cyclist, jump on a bike, I kind of take it for granted that I'm just riding a bike. Where there's ambulance cyclists, in Africa, they have to kind of do their job on a bike. Maybe there's kids who have their school is 10 kilometers away. So yeah, the World Bicycle Relief are focused on kind of overcoming the barrier of distance, and just things that we probably take for granted, just trying to get around and go to the shop, even like getting water from the nearest well could be 5 kilometers away. So just having a buffalo bike. Yeah, the World Bicycle Relief, they have their buffalo bike, which is kind of custom designed to deal with the terrain in developing countries. So, and that's what the goal that I've set is to try to get to 10 buffalo bikes. So that's what I'm trying to do this coming June at the moment, and between now and then. So thank you again for your donation and for spreading the awareness.
And I'm going to have some links, Gareth, in our podcast description today, not only to your sites and things like that, but also for the fundraising. And then if there are those of you, because I know I do have listeners in Japan, For any of you that might be near that Osaka area that would look to join in, I'm going to include those links for everything as well. And like I said, if you're financially able, I would greatly appreciate it. If you can't, and maybe you can give some support in other ways, just sharing on your Instagram or social media, these events would mean a whole bunch. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And for yourself, what are some of your goals for, like beyond 2022 for your business?
Sure. So I guess, as I said, like I think I've started so many projects, so I have a long to-do list at the moment. I think everyone does, so and I'm not trying to say anything there. I just want to get things done that I kind of maybe started a few years ago that got sidetracked. There was we had some riders around. They went to Shikoku, and we started to make a blog, and then it got put on the back burner. Again, kind of trying to focus on maybe responsible tourism. I had an idea of a blog. I wanted to write about responsible cycle tourism. And so these are things that I want to catch up with, because again, they're still in the back of my mind, like you need to do this, you need to do this. And yeah. So, but I think prior to 2020, actually at the end of 2019, I had just also opened a shop in Kyoto, like Roadway Rental Japan. At that time, Global Wheels, we went by the name Global Wheels, and we'd opened a second shop. So the idea, Kyoto was so busy with cycle tourism, but we also had riders wanted to ride from Osaka to Kyoto. And it was a great way that we could provide a service where they could finish their ride in Kyoto and just do the one-way trip. And so for me to feel that the world is back on track, like my goal is to try to get back to the Kyoto shop. And then from there, who knows, I kind of always wanted to try and get one in Onomichi by the Shirimami Kaido too. But it's just kind of, yeah, like the pandemic, as it has done with everyone, it's put everyone back maybe a couple of years. And I think it's just kind of a case of getting there, keep working away, keep plugging away, and then, yeah, hopefully 5 years down the line, things will maybe have caught back up with where I wanted to take the business 2 years ago. But still, and I think, you know, being in Kyoto, just having that ability to offer the service to those wanting to ride around Kyoto, and even get out of this, you know, the scenery, getting into the hills, it's just amazing. We were located at Matsuo Taisha, which is just by Arashiyama, a very beautiful part of the world. And I used to just be, in awe every time I went to work, because it's just the scenery was completely different from Osaka. And you just have these beautiful mountains in the background, and then, yeah, we'd take groups into the mountains on the bikes, and just the scenery up there was amazing, absolutely amazing.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Nice. Is there, anything else about, like your service, your business, yourself that you'd like to share with listeners that you haven't shared to this point?
Sure. Something that I started during the pandemic too is I started to put a web directory together. Originally, I called it the Cycle Friendly app because I thought it was going to be an app, but it's a learning curve for me, and it's taken a long time to try to learn how to make apps and things. So, but the website is there. I just haven't really pushed it so much. My idea was to kind of get it out there, and people could find cycle-friendly accommodation, cafes and things along their trips. Not just in Japan, it would be starting with Japan, but again, it's just one of those ideas that because of everything that you're doing, it can take a while to get there. But so the cycle-friendly app is something that I'm working on too, and hopefully we'll be able to get more businesses on board sharing their cycle-friendly services around Japan.
And that's interesting, though. I'm going to put the cycle-friendly app address as well into our show notes. Just something else to add.
And have a good birthday in the meantime.
Definitely will. My daughter and I, just as a secret life hack for us, we go and buy only one piece of cake for my birthday, but we just call that the entire cake. Because until you cut it, it's really not more than one piece. So I only have one piece of cake on my birthday. That's it, just the whole cake. So, so
I should tell my wife that.
it's great.
I end up getting the leftovers.
Well, Gareth, thank you so much, truly, for joining us here today. And I really appreciate just all the relationships that I'm able to make by talking to everybody that's in Japan, that's running businesses, and doing different things like you, and the connections that we're getting to make. And truly, it means the world to me, having you on today. So just again, thank you for setting aside time and for doing all that you did just to be here with us today.
Oh, it was a real pleasure. It was a fun experience as well. It's my first time ever doing a podcast. So, no, thank you for that, Michael. And again, a big thank you to Jeffrey at Rediscover Tours and for the introduction. And thanks to the listeners for putting up with me for the last hour or so. So, thank you for listening.
I gotta say, truly, with everything that's going on, I think if we put as many good vibes as we can out there into the world, I really think that that's going to come back to us, and it does a lot. And truly, thank you for responding and just coming back on with us. So, um, just it's been wonderful, wonderful time, and look forward to doing it again once we're actually open, and then I can see kind of like what's going on with you, and hopefully then at that point in time, we'll have some people that are looking to join on or set up different tours with you. So look forward to hearing that growth.
Sure, thank you. I'd love to kind of be on again and talk maybe how things have progressed, a year or 2 years down the line. It's been a fascinating story, the pandemic, something that we didn't really expect. And I think the world everyone has almost like a fresh start again in a way as it comes around, as the world opens to travel again. So I'm looking forward to for what's in hold for everybody, actually, really. So
Thank you again, Gareth, and on behalf of Lost Without Japan and the entire crew, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this interview. We look forward to seeing you on board again for our next regularly scheduled episode as we continue our discussion on Japan, travel, culture, and your lost without moments. To everyone out there, O Ginki Day. Stay well, my friends.